Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Facebook Live with myself. My name is Sam, if you haven't seen me before, and I am the pain and performance expert here at Sheffield Sports Medicine. And hello to you all, and happy Thursday. So, today's topic is obviously about muscles and what they are and why they are so important. So, a lot of us already know what muscles are in the sense that we know that they are certain things on our body, they give us some shape. I think that's a very simplified term. All right. And obviously, everybody has muscles. Everybody has muscles, and everybody pretty much has the same amount of muscles, which I'll give you a good fact, it's about 639, give or take, muscles in the body. Okay, so that is a lot of muscles, and they vary in size and they vary in strength as well, because some are stabilizers and some actually do movements for us. So you've got to think about it. When we have muscles in the body, what makes our joints move is muscles. Okay, everything that we do, from getting up out of bed to getting into bed, sitting up, walking, is all muscular contractions. And what's happening is the muscles pulling. Usually you have one muscle pulling while one muscle stretches out. Okay, and this basically means that you can move a joint equally. For example, we use the elbow joint for an example here. Okay, so here we have the bicep. Okay, and the bicep, when you want to bring your elbow into flexion here, the bicep will pull, which means the tricep here has to lengthen. Okay, now if both muscles contracted at the same time, you wouldn't be able to move your elbow. All right, so it's really important that we understand that muscles have to contract and relax at the right time to make things efficient. All right, so it's really important that you understand that muscles need to do that for us to move. There has to be one that contracts and has to be one that relaxes. And then you obviously have your stabilizers as well, which help stabilize joints or stabilize yourself in certain positions and movements. Okay, so that is pretty much muscles in a nutshell. Is they help us move. Okay, but they do a lot more than just help us move, and they actually help us not just move, but help us with our energy efficiency. All right, how good we are at expending energy, using energy, and how well we are adapting to situations as well. So muscles play a huge part in our lives, because without them we won't be able to move, we'll be able to do anything really, and especially when you think about things like organs. So for example, the heart is a muscle in itself, and it will hypertrophy. So what I mean by hypertrophy is basically it grows bigger, because we all know that working out and eating the right amount and the right things will make our muscles grow, and this is called hypertrophy, muscular hypertrophy. And this means muscles are increasing in size. And when you talk to people who want to be like bodybuilders, they're always talking about hypertrophy, because that's what they want. They want to grow muscles and want to make them larger. You also have the opposite, which is atrophy, which means that the muscle is wasting. Okay, so if someone is suffering from muscular atrophy, then you know they're talking about muscle wastage. All right, so basically, if you go to the gym for ages, for years, start pumping, you start to get hypertrophy, and then you stop going, you'll get atrophy, because the muscles will not be, they're not being used, they're not being stimulated enough, and therefore the body doesn't need them, and they start to decay. And it's not that they don't need them, because they need obviously to move, but they don't need them that big, because it's a waste of energy if you're not using them. And this is why it's so important to use your muscles. All right, because in fact that perfectly leads on to this point, because if you don't use it, you lose it, right? And that goes with muscles as well. If you don't use your muscles, you lose it. You probably see people that, I don't know, you might have, I certainly have, that's a bed bound, and they can't move, and what you'll see is severe atrophy. So all, like, if they've been in bed for years, their muscles will waste away. People in comas, for example, they waste away, because the body is not needing those muscles, it's not using them, and it's a waste of energy. So it's going to get rid of them and use the resources somewhere else. All right. So really important that no matter what stage you are in your life, age, you are using your muscles, because if not, you lose them, and then you lose mobility, and then you start getting pain, and that's not good. We don't want that. So I've got some really good questions here regarding muscles anyway, and the main one we kind of just looked at is how do I increase muscle? All right. So before I answer this question, I just want to give you a bit more information on muscles. All right. So obviously we know that muscles are really important for moving. Now we've discussed that, and they're obviously important for lifting and just doing everyday tasks. Okay. But did you know we actually have different types of fibers in our muscle? So a muscle itself, you get the muscle belly, for example, and it's made of loads and loads and loads of fibers that all come together to help contract the muscle. Okay, so the muscle is made out of loads of fibers. And at a given time, the brain won't engage all these fibers, all right? Because think of it this way. If the brain engages all those fibers at the same time, the risk of injury increases, all right? So what tends to happen with muscles is the more you use the muscles, the better the connection is in terms of the fibers. So you'll be able to contract and use more fibers. And this is why some people who you might have seen in the gym don't look very big, don't look very muscular, but they can lift a lot. And that's because they're probably recruiting a lot more fibers. All right, so it's really important to remember that fiber recruitment is just as important to strength as muscle mass. Okay, but the bigger the muscle, probably the more fibers you have as well. Okay, now there are different types of fibers. There are fast twitch and slow twitch, type 1, type 2. There are hybrids as well, but for today we're going to keep it nice and simple. So the hybrids are basically a mix, but everybody is different. Everybody has different DNA, and depending on that DNA will depend on their fiber types. So some people will have a mix, some people will be more type 1 dominant or type 2 dominant. So if you're type 1 dominant, you're going to be very good at using oxygen. Your muscles are really good at using oxygen, okay, which means you're probably going to be suited for endurance-based events. Okay, so long distance runners, they're going to have, you look at long distance runner, you take a sample of quad, put it under a microscope, check the fiber types, etc. You will find that they will be very high dominant type 1. So they'll be very good at using oxygen in their muscles, and they will actually perform really well with oxygen. But what you'll also find with people type 1 is they're not very fast in the terms of sprinting through, they're not very explosive, and they might not be able to lift explosive weights. Okay, and this kind of brings us on to type 2, which is fast twitch. Now these people are going to be your sprinters and kind of like your power lifters as well. Anything that's really explosive will be type 2. So they're basically anaerobic. They're not going to use oxygen, but they're going to respond very quickly, very powerfully, but they won't be able to do it for a long period of time. Okay, so that is basically the difference between type 1, type 2. They're the most common muscle fibers you're going to see. There are hybrids and type 2X, type 2X, etc. But we won't go into them today because it will just be a bit confusing. So just remember there's type 1, type 2, fast twitch, slow twitch, and hybrid, okay? And depending on what you do, or your DNA will depend on what your fiber types are. Now I know there's probably some burning questions there, such as, can I change these fiber types? Absolutely, of course you can. You can actually, your body will actually develop and change fiber types depending on your stimulus and what you are doing with your body. So if you're a powerlifter, you start doing powerlifting, get better and better at it, your body will recruit more type 2. Fast twitch. If you start, long distance running, type 1. Okay, so they can change, and they will change depending on your environment, depending on what you're doing with your body and the adaptations it needs to make. So enough about that. Let's get on to these questions now, because I don't have too long today. I've got lots of people to help to see. So how do I increase muscle? Good question. So muscle, so this is hypertrophy we spoke about earlier. And to increase muscle, you need to be basically getting your body to adapt to the load. So training to hypertrophy, and more importantly, getting your protein and calories in, because if you don't have the fuel to repair and rebuild, it won't happen. All right, so diet is really important for muscle building as well as training. Now, ideally, looking at the research here, between 10 and 12 reps, 8 to 12 reps, that it would recommend for hypertrophy, which is fine. I kind of agree with that. I think that is a good range. So you want to be doing something, some sort of exercise between 8 and 12 reps, but you want that 12 rep to be quite difficult. Okay, you want to be struggling on that 12 rep. So you're almost training to failure. And that's really, really important for muscle hypertrophy. And you want to be doing about 3 to 5 sets for hypertrophy as well. And isolating the muscle is even better. They say, well, researchers have shown that actually the muscle, when it's in a lengthening position, it will actually increase hypertrophy. All right, and that's why they say nice slow reps are important for increasing muscle as well. So slow down the contraction. Okay, that will help grow muscle. This is the answer to your questions, by the way. So slowing down the reps, nice, slow and controlled reps will increase hypertrophy. Rep range between 8 and 12, and diet, protein, and get your food inside of you, and you'll be okay, and you will increase. I would recommend training a muscle type 2 days a week as well. It used to be 1 day a week, but research is now showing that 2 days a week is a lot better, much more beneficial for hypertrophy. So, for example, for legs, if you're training legs, try and do it 2 days a week, and that will increase hypertrophy quicker than 1 day a week. Okay. All right. Next question: how do I get a six-pack? All right, good question. So everybody has a six-pack. All right, everybody has a six-pack, and the way you get it is being below a certain percent in body fat. For men, below 10% and below, you'll start to definitely see a six-pack. For women, it's a little bit less. But for women, if you start getting in that range where you start to see a six-pack, you're kind of borderlining on a healthy weight, because women have to have some more, have to have naturally, they have more natural fat, and it's really important that they have that, because it helps with their health and helps them have babies as well. And usually what happens is if a woman gets too low in weight, she will not be able to have babies, okay, until she puts that weight back on. So it's really important that if you are looking to get six-pack, you do obviously have to lose weight and have to lose fat, and get to a certain fat percentage, and you will see that six-pack, but also do it responsibly. That's really important that you do it healthily. A little secret for you: most people will go on Instagram and they'll see all these athletes with 6-packs, 8-packs, 12-packs, and a lot of the time, what we tend to see is like these models, don't get me wrong, they're in fantastic shape and have worked really hard for that. But what they will do is they will get to a certain body fat percentage where they look absolutely ripped, all right? And they will just take a load of pictures, all right? Because it's really, really hard, especially to do it naturally, to stay at a low fat percentage body weight and be healthy and happy, okay? So what a lot of these Instagram models tend to do is just do a week of where they're absolutely ripped, take loads of photos and put them on throughout the year, and then go back to a normal walking round weight. We would call it a walking round weight, which is fine, which is normal. So in terms of getting a six-pack, you just have to be under a low fat percentage. But it can be hard to maintain. Some people are okay. Elite athletes that are always constantly doing activity, doing exercise, and eating enough will probably maintain a six-pack throughout their training. Which is fine. It's good. That's a healthy way to do it. But if you're just dropping to get a six-pack, it may be hard to maintain without constant stimulus. Okay, but it's not impossible. I've had a six-pack. I know loads of people who have had a six-pack, and other people got a six-pack, and they're very happy and healthy. So there's no problem with it. Just do it responsibly, and you'll be fine. But the key is diet. Diet is the key. Doesn't matter how many sit-ups you do. If you've got a high body fat percentage, you're not going to get a six-pack. Simple as that. When do you start losing muscle? So this is a good question. So you start losing muscle when you become sedentary. So there's kind of like a bit of a rule of thumb here. If you, it takes about 4 weeks, maybe a month, to start to notice some sort of change in muscular definition or muscular strength. However, it takes around 2 weeks to lose that. All right, so it's an unfair battle here. So you have to stay on top of it and be consistent if you want to get stronger and bigger. And you start losing muscle if you're sedentary. We talked about this as atrophy. So you start to lose muscle if you're sedentary, not using the muscle, and also if you're not eating enough as well. Because what happens is if the body uses all its storage in terms of fats and sugar, the next place it goes is muscle. All right, because it needs to get energy from somewhere to keep you alive. So if you're not eating enough, then it will eat into muscle as well. And that's why diet is really important for hypertrophy, building muscle, getting stronger. And around, in terms of age-wise, people will start to lose muscle around 30, about 30 years old, around there. And there's been loads of studies to show what happens if you get to this age and then become sedentary. And unfortunately, it's not good. So if you're around the 30s and you're sedentary and you're not doing much, you're starting to lose muscle at a fast rate, or faster rate than you have been. And what will happen is you'll just atrophy, and eventually that'll give you problems later on in life. And there's been, like I said, there's been loads of studies to show what happens to people who live a sedentary life and people who are active even to their late 70s, 80s. And in some cases, I've actually seen 90s women and men still playing squash, tennis, gym, etc. And it's really good to see that. And this study, basically what I'm talking about, has shown that the muscle around the leg, or wherever they were taking the sample from, they did an image of it, and you could see in the century that the muscle had just wasted, had basically gone. However, they also showed what the muscle was like pre-sedentary, or before it started to waste. And then they showed an older person in their late 70s who was a triathlete, sorry. And they showed that the muscle mass for the triathlete was pretty much exactly the same as it was when they were in their 30s, still doing exercise. And what this shows is basically like this person has carried on weight training, exercising, and because of that, because the body has had that stimulus for that many years, the muscle has stayed because the body needs it. It needs it. So the muscle has stayed there. However, the person who was sedentary, the muscle is wasted away. So it's really important that no matter what age you are, you'll keep exercising, you keep weight training, weight lifting. All right, I can't tell you how important it is to constantly resistance train for men, women of all ages. Okay, it will make life so much easier. All right, so I hope that answers your question of losing muscle. Last question, and I've got to get off and see patients. Any tips for getting rid of tension headaches? So tension headaches are usually caused through neck trap muscles here, and usually stress is a big player in this. So my first tip would be do something that relieves stress, okay, whatever it may be. If it is a hobby, an activity, a day off, all right, that can always help reduce tension headaches, especially if it's being caused by stress or emotion, all right, which do play a big part on pain and headaches there. In other ways, you can obviously get a sports massage. It might give you some benefit. You can self-massage yourself, get a tennis ball in here, get your fingers, try and compress vertebrae, okay, so basically doing a grade 1 to 2 manipulation, which basically is just very, very light pushing on the vertebrae. Okay, so there are a lot of ways to reduce that, but my question would be, what's causing it in the first place? Is it tension from emotion, or is it, if you had an injury to the neck, whiplash? Is that what's causing these neck muscles here to brace? So it's just about what's causing tension headache.